tutorial starts with a song, but it's only a few seconds long. Let's get started with animation. Hello folks, have a close look. It's very dark because it's night time in this clip. I wanted to make the headlights of the car visible somehow. So I placed something like a fog in the air so the headlights are visible. Not just the influence of the headlight where it hits the street, but mainly the beam of the headlights. And when I stop the animation at a certain point, like here, you see that I added a third light in the scene, which briefly lights up, and it's placed in the center of that car. You can see that the foggy effect is also visible with this light. It puts the environment of the car into a, well, dusty atmosphere. This is a new scene, of course, and I go to Curves and Surfaces and create a plane. This is a NURBS plane, doesn't matter. It can be done with a polygon plane as well. We need a surface to see the influence of our light. Now we go to Create and Lights and Spotlight. All the lights here are supported by Arnold as a render engine, but they come from the previous days of the Maya renderer. So just keep this in mind. The spotlight lands in the center of the scene, and when I raise it and move it a little bit back and tilt it down, it looks like this. And when I press the key 7, now I see the influence of the light. I can play with the parameters of the light, but I won't. And the only thing I'm going to do is I open the light effects section here. And here I have light fog. This is exactly what I need. And when I click on this checkerboard icon, I all of a sudden have a color of the fog and intensity of the fog, which is 1, which is just fine for a start. But and I have an extension of the icon, the representation, the scene of our spotlight. This is the light fog, but I don't see the influence of the fog here because it's not displayed using my viewport 2.0 method. Maybe you can with a proper graphics card. But we can render it in Arnold here in the viewport, and you see a very dim representation of the light. The reason is that the intensity is not high enough for Arnold, and you have in the attribute editor of the light, you have the Arnold section, and here you can raise the exposure and then you see the influence of the light in the rendering, but you don't see the beam, although we ticked on light beam, the light fog. Well, the problem is this: we need to go to the choice of renderers, and we currently have the default renderer, which is the Arnold renderer, and we go to the Maya software renderer. And when we render it now, not in the viewport but here, we see the beam of our light. And this is basically the way to represent the headlights in the car scene. But I didn't do it this way because I wanted to use Arnold as a renderer. We create a second light. Our second light is here, and I tilt it slightly over here. With the key 7 I see the influence of this light again. And now I'm not going to use the light effects section in the attribute editor, but I'll use something different. By the way, when I render it in Maya, I see the beam here, but not here because I did not switch on the light effects, light fog here. But I want to show you how to render this in Arnold. The trick is to go to the render settings again, choose the Arnold renderer, and here under the Arnold renderer tab you have the environment. And the environment offers you an atmosphere, which is basically what we want. We want a fog which is covering the whole scene. And the checkerboard gives us 3 options, and we won't discuss the other ones. We choose the first one, Create AI Atmosphere Volume. That means Arnold puts a volume into the scene, which covers the whole scene as an atmosphere. Done. And now I render it with Arnold in the viewport, and the intensity is too low. The spotlight too needs a higher intensity. You see up here the light effects, the light fog is off, and here we can raise the intensity, and we still see no beam. What is the problem? We don't see any beams here in Arnold. Well, the problem is that Arnold often, and other things in Maya as well, start with 0. So we have a 0 fog intensity. Let's have a look at the fog. Where is it? I think I go back here and click on this icon, and now I see the density is 0. Let's raise the intensity, the density actually, and we have light fog on both beams. Now when I introduce any kind of other light, for example an Arnold area light, which needs to be unnormalized in order to have an effect. You see the fog here, very nice indeed. Spreading the fog all over the place, and with a, say, create lights, a point light, you see the same effect. I move it slightly over here, and we have this really sweet effect of a foggy point light. Let me wrap this up. When you create a new light from the Maya section here, create lights, for example a spotlight. And when you, now let me close everything, when you open the light effects and introduce a light fog, it can only be rendered with Maya as the renderer engine, Maya software. But you can ignore this with when you render it with Arnold, because with Arnold you need to go to the render settings, to environment, and introduce the AI atmosphere volume. The problem, well, if it's a problem with the AI atmosphere volume, is that it applies to all light sources, as you can see. Well, how can you exclude certain lights from that foggy effect? Well, let's pick the area light to give you an example, and somewhere down there we see volume under visibility, and because it's a volumetric effect we can reduce the volume, and now you see the beam of the area light is gone. We only see the light's influence on the ground. And the same applies to Maya lights. For example, this light. Open the Arnold section here in the spotlight, because we're dealing with Arnold as a render engine, and we're searching for volume now. It's under visibility, and here you see the volume, and now we exclude the Maya spotlight from being fog rendered, so to say. So it's gone now. So all we have in the scene with beams are these two lights. And for the car scene, the very dark one, we need sound, and I tell you where I got it from. I got it from freesound.org, and the Night Cricket sound by Stebanqui. And this is the sound of the car passing by. It was recorded in 2021 by Sotiris Laskaris. Thanks, folks. This is all Creative Commons. And the car model, which I find very sweet, in fact, and it doesn't cost anything. This is the Nissan 3D model which I used. I got it from free3d.com. It was designed by Centil2305 whatever. Thank you very much for creating this, and have a nice day. Bye bye. And now for something completely different. There are hundreds of tutorials in this channel, covering lots of different subjects and topics.